The last few weeks, I've been noticing a new trend on TikTok related to visual weight. So this high versus low visual weight makeup filter tells you which makeup style suits your face more, and based on that, you can tell if your face has high or low visual weight. Now the question is this filter actually accurate? I tried the filter on myself and I have some opinions about it. So let's talk more about visual weight and how we can actually determine whether our features have high or low visual weight. We'll also address some common questions around this topic at the end of the video, so make sure to stay tuned till the end if you want to learn more. Alright, so I tried the visual weight makeup filter on myself, right? And honestly, the high visual weight makeup style reminded me a little bit of how I used to wear my makeup a decade ago, whereas the low visual weight makeup looks similar to how I normally wear my makeup these days. Today specifically, I tried to mimic the filter and threw on some freckles because I thought they looked really cute. And I'm actually wearing a bit of a stronger color on my lips than I usually do, and my brows are also darker than how I normally wear them because I got an email from an anonymous fan saying that I look embalmed. Yeah, that actually happened. Well, now that I look a bit more alive, hopefully, here's a couple of reasons why I think the TikTok filter is not all that accurate in determining whether your features have high or low visual weight. First of all, there's different trends in makeup, and minimal makeup styles have been in trend for a number of years now. I'm sure a lot of you have encountered videos or photos like these that compare the dominant makeup styles of 2016 versus now. This type of content actually started popping up in 2021, so we can tell that 2016 was sort of the peak of when really bold makeup styles were trending the most. And since 2017-ish, more minimal styles of makeup trends started popping up everywhere because there's always gonna be that pendulum effect, whether it's in fashion, makeup, or politics even. You're gonna hit one end of the spectrum at an extreme, and then you'll start to see the pendulum swing to the other side. So that directional change in makeup trends towards a more minimal style started happening in 2017. And the reason why I'm bringing up the timeline of makeup trends is because we've been so accustomed to seeing the minimal makeup trends for a while now, and a lot of us have probably jumped on the train of wearing more natural styles of makeup in recent years. So seeing this filter and the supposed high visual weight makeup look on yourself might just seem unusual or outdated, regardless of the actual visual weight of your features. If I use myself as an example, I happen to have features that lean more towards lower visual weight, so more natural styles of makeup suits me better. But like I said, the high visual weight makeup look reminds me of how I used to wear my makeup, and I think this was around 2011, 2012, I want to say. And that was partially because I had no idea or knowledge about this whole concept of visual weight, but also because bolder makeup styles were kind of in style back then. So in my opinion, regardless of whether you have high or low visual weight, the high visual weight makeup look in this filter might just seem off on you because it's out of style. Another reason why I think this filter isn't all that accurate is because the high visual makeup style in the filter is ridiculously bold. Not to say that it's not suitable for anyone at all, but to be able to pull off this level of makeup, you have to have very high visual weight in your features. But visual weight, just like most things, is on a spectrum, so you could have very high visual weight, kind of high visual weight, medium visual weight, and so on. And guess what? As with anything on a spectrum, most of us fall somewhere in the middle. So this filter, I feel, is designed to be very black and white, like you're one way or the other, period, which is why so many people trying this filter are saying that they prefer the low visual weight makeup look, and they assume that they have low visual weight, but to my eyes, some of these girls obviously have high visual weight. It's just that the high visual weight makeup in that specific filter just looks so overwhelming on most people. So bottom line is, the filter is fun, and if you've never heard about visual weight before, it's cool to learn that there's different styles that are most suitable for you depending on the visual weight of your features. But if you're actually looking to find out whether your features have high or low visual weight, I think the filter can definitely be misleading. So now let's talk about how to find out whether your face has high or low visual weight. This is actually my second video on this topic, so if this is your first video from my channel that you're watching, or if you want to learn more about the in-depth definition of what having high or low visual weight actually means, I'll link the first video up here for you to check out. But to give you a one-liner definition of visual weight of the face, it's about determining the visual force of your facial features. So how much emphasis or attention your facial features draw to themselves. Now, there are three main things to look out for in determining the visual weight of your face: the size of the features, the color or the contrast that the color creates, and the dimension. I think size and color are pretty simple concepts to understand. The bigger the feature is, the higher the visual weight, and vice versa. The first question that I've seen people on TikTok ask in determining the visual weight is, do you have a small face with big features, or do you have a big face with small features? So the size of the features in relation to the blank spaces of the face, as I like to refer to as, is essentially what we're trying to assess. In terms of color, it's also quite simple. The more the color pops or the higher the contrast created by the color, the higher the visual weight. And with color, I'm not only referring to the color of your eyes, but also your eyebrows and hair and the color of your lips. How dark or light are they? How high of a contrast level do they create against the skin, etc. Now, dimension is where I think people get really confused because what does that even mean, right? Well, dimension when it comes to visual weight is referring to your bone structure. Because human faces are three-dimensional, the more prominence there is to the bone structure and the more protruded your bones are, a higher sense of depth is created within the face. So questions like how high is your nose bridge, how angular and prominent are your cheekbones and jawline are what we're asking. It's essentially talking about the depth of dimension within the face. So all of these are factors to consider when you're trying to determine the visual weight of the individual features, but when we're looking at the entire face to decide whether the face has high or low visual weight overall, the features that have the biggest influence are the eyes and the eyebrows. These are the features that create the most contrast within the face, and they're where our gaze is drawn to the most naturally. So the higher the visual weight of the eyes and the eyebrows, the higher the overall visual weight of the face is. And if you're trying to determine the visual weight of the face as a whole, always start with the eyes and the eyebrows and place the most importance to those features. This is why there are more East Asian faces in general that have lower visual weight. East Asians tend to have smaller eyes. We also have lower nose bridges in general, and we have more width in our faces as well, which increases the size of the blank space within the face. I mean, to be honest, the concept of visual weight became popular because of Dear Peachy, which is a channel that mostly uses East Asians as examples in their videos. Honestly, I feel like this whole idea of high versus low visual weight came about when East Asians started realizing that traditional Western styles of makeup don't always work for our faces because our features are much more delicate. But that's not to say that the concept can only apply to East Asians. Like I said, the idea of visual weight is on a spectrum, so obviously it can apply to anyone regardless of the race. But if we were to look at where everyone would fall within the spectrum, I think that proportionally we would find a higher number of East Asian faces with lower visual weight in general. Again, this is a generalization, and obviously there are exceptions, as there always are. And let me just make it clear that one is not better than the other. We just have different styles that work well for each of us. So in that sense, I'm actually glad for the TikTok filter to be the way it is, because a lot of people are saying, oh, I look better with the low visual weight makeup, which in my opinion breaks the stereotype that having low visual weight is somehow worse than having high visual weight. It absolutely is not, so don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. Alright, so now let's get into some common questions about visual weight. The first question is, how much does bone structure actually matter? Well, first of all, to talk about why bone structure matters is because of the dimension and the level of depth that's added to the face with the prominence and the protrusion in the facial structure. There's also the balance between the yin and yang energies within the face, and angularity and sharpness in the bones is a more yang trait, so exudes more strength and force, and visual weight is all about the visual force, right? There's actually a phrase in Korean, 기가 세다 or 기가 세 보인다, which literally translates to having a strong energy or having the appearance of a strong energy. And this expression is often associated with having very prominent cheekbones or jawline, that your face exudes strong strong energy. Now, how much bone structure matters in determining the visual weight, I think depends on the rest of the face and your facial features. For example, if your facial features like the eyes, nose, and lips have low visual weight overall, but you have very prominent cheekbones or jawline, I think that the prominence of the bone structure is a lot more highlighted or emphasized than when you also have high visual weight features. So when the bone structure and the facial features all carry a high level of visual weight, the prominence in the bone structure doesn't seem to stand out as much because the facial features draw a stronger level of emphasis to themselves. So it's almost like your facial structure and the features are fighting for attention, if that makes sense. Which is why the facial structure seems to have a lot more prominence in contrast when the facial features have low visual weight. So to answer the question, how much does bone structure actually matter in determining the visual weight? I think the answer is that it depends on the visual weight of your facial features, and your facial structure adds some level of visual weight, but not as much as the eyes, nose, and lips. Next question is, why is visual weight related to heavier or natural styles of makeup? Again, I think the answer is that it's all about the relative weight between the amount of makeup and the features. If the feature has a high level of visual weight, let's say, then it can handle more makeup without the feature being buried under the makeup. Like, is the feature wearing the makeup or is the makeup wearing the feature? If you think about seasonal colors, there's often the saying, the color is wearing you instead of the other way around. If I'm in a soft season, for example, and I wear something really bright, you see the color first rather than seeing the person first. So that, I think, is a good analogy to refer to when we're talking about makeup and its relationship to visual weight. Another common question is, do you have to stick to one style? So either bold makeup or light makeup, depending on your visual weight. I think this kind of goes back to the different trends that we talked about earlier. Minimal makeup and clean girl aesthetic has been around for a number of years now, and whether you have high or low visual weight, a lot of us have adapted to the trend and made it work for ourselves. I think makeup is all about the overall image and the vibe at the end of the day, so even if you have low visual weight, you can still make a bolder makeup look work, but you might just want to tweak the formula to fit your features a little more harmoniously. Maybe use softer colors, like instead of black, use brown, or instead of filling in all of your waterline, only line half of it, or line the lower lash line instead so the eyes don't appear as closed off or as overwhelmed by the makeup. There are definitely ways around it to make certain styles work for you regardless of your visual weight. You just have to know what level of intensity you can kind of push the boundaries to. And the best way to find that out is by trial and error, as much as I know you guys are probably looking for a more definitive solution. But in the end, it's all about finding your own identity and style rather than trying to mimic others, especially when your features don't really have much in common with them. So it's all a part of your personal style journey. I was also thinking, I've been posting more short form videos on Instagram and TikTok, and I was thinking that since the mob wife aesthetic, or just a bolder style in general, I think is making a comeback, I'll start posting more tips on wearing a bolder makeup look for low visual weight features, something along that line. So if you're interested in those types of more practical tips, make sure to follow me on those platforms for more useful content. I'll see you in my next video, and until then, stay unique and stay gorgeous.